But my question is, where is the world? Where is the United Nations? Where is Gutierrez? Where are the Democrats? Where are these so-called human rights organizations while the Jews are being slaughtered in open with GoPro cameras and their destruction is being shown on Facebook and Signal?
And now, The Edwin Black Show. Sponsored by the Books of Edwin Black, available on Amazon and at booksellers worldwide. And now, here's Edwin.
Hello, I'm Edwin Black, investigative journalist, historian, and human rights author of 235 editions in 40 languages in 190 countries worldwide, including IBM and the Holocaust, War Against the Weak, and The Far Hood, as well as other books. This is a show for opinion makers and decision makers, not mass clicks. So if you think our show's content is meaningful, spread the word through your most informed networks. Subscribe for free alerts at theedwinblackshow.com. And if you want to support our work, we need your assistance. Please visit theedwinblackshow.com/support. Your help, big or small, assures our complete and utter intellectual and uncensored journalistic independence. Go to theedwinblackshow.com/support and keep us independent. And yes, I mean you. Today's episode is made possible and sponsored without any preconditions, requests, or stipulations by the forthcoming 4th edition of Ken Abramowitz's incisive best-selling book, The Multi-Front War, available everywhere. If you'd like to honor someone with a sponsorship, contact us. That said, remember, I only speak for myself and for history, and the same goes for my guests. Today, we welcome viewers from across America, including our 4 watch parties in the Villages, Newton, Mass, Chicago, and thank you, Harvey and company in Tampa Bay. Overseas, I see viewers logged on from most of our usuals. I see Australia, New Zealand, Great Britain, of course, Canada, Germany, Holland, Hungary, welcome, France, Italy, Spain, Poland, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, and Israel, plus other countries. If you have a question, place one short sentence in Zoom's QA feature. The Edwin Black Show, along with our YouTube site, is global and fast-growing, enjoying many scores of thousands of views. We speak frankly and without tremor to a fragmented world, seeking better understanding of our tormented past, our present, very, very tense, and a turbulent future still uncertain. By the way, stay tuned for my special word of wisdom at the very end of the show, just before I sign off. So let's get to it. Coming up, our next installment of Unanswered Questions, number 18. But before we do, we have special guests on 2 pressing topics. First, many know that one of America's closest Arab allies in the Mideast is Qatar. The tiny nation of Qatar hosts America's biggest air base in the region. That's Al Udeid Air Base, which serves as the pivotal hub for the Pentagon's CENTCOM. And it is Qatar that functions as America's go-between with the leading monsters of the world. They were the lead helpers in America's tragic and unforgivable exit from Afghanistan. Qatar has been the main nexus with Hamas during all these awful negotiations for the return of our hostages. Let me put my hostage medal on. Qatar is big in America. They are a big man on campus, donating to many universities. They are a big man in the media, buying a controlling $50 million interest in conservative Newsmax. Of course, the Qatari government wholly owns and controls the toxic Al Jazeera network, and they have even established by Royal Decree number 13 a, quote, media city, which situates large, widespread media operations from big networks down to Northwestern University's famed School of Journalism known as NU-Q. Qatar is big in Washington, big in the White House. Last year and this year, former First Lady Jill Biden was very tight with the powerful Qatar Foundation, and she even flew to Qatar last December as one of the Biden crime family's last acts, where Jill gave a glamorized speech to the Doha Forum. Qatar is also big at Trump Tower. A few days ago, Eric Trump announced a $5.5 billion Saimesma beachside project, just a 40-minute quick drive from Doha. I refer to the Trump International Golf Course, which will also feature the so-called Trump Villas. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's $5.5 billion US. Qatar is America's great friend, except it is not. America is asleep. Qatar is America's great enemy. And not only is America asleep, we are sleeping with the enemy. Here to tell us more, trying to even scratch the surface, is one of the world's most knowledgeable Mideast analysts. I give you Yossi Hollander, speaking from Orange County, California. Yossi, just an appetizer, please. Take the screen.
Thank you, Ed. Qatar, everybody thinks about a country. This is actually a small tribe of 250,000 people, controlling about 2.5 million slaves that are working there and doing everything. And they are the main funder and supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood worldwide, with the goal of taking over the world. But we also have to remember that there are two priorities for that kingdom. One, survival. Second, taking over the world. In the world, they want to talk about the West, they talk about the Arab world, the Muslim world, and of course, taking over Israel. They want Israel out of there. But they're playing both sides for survival. So I think if we make it hard for them to try to conquer the world, they will retreat to a position of protecting the kingdom and survival. But I don't think we should let them survive. I think we should simply take them over. There is no reason for their existence. What they do in the United States right now is trying to destroy the United States systems. They put their money everywhere. Until recently, they concentrated mostly on progressives' causes, on the Democratic Party. Now that they're behind, they're pouring billions and billions in fast pace to take over the Republican Party and its opinion makers. They are desperate. We should use the time. They have a lot of enemies like the Saudis and others. It is time to take Qatar down to its normal size.
Well, that's an extraordinarily accurate rendering of the exterior of the problem. The only reason that Qatar exists is because, as I wrote in my book, British Petroleum and the Red Line Agreement, there was a pencil drawn around the Middle East for who would control the oil monopoly. And the pen was only so thick, and it didn't include the little island of Qatar. Is there any chance that America will wake up, Yossi, and especially our political establishment? Will they wake up and realize that Qatar, the guys who work both sides of the street, the guys who have infiltrated the American political scene, the guys who have infiltrated the Israeli government, that these guys are the great enemy?
I doubt it, unfortunately. But it is our only chance of surviving as a society. They already destroyed most of European society with Islamists that penetrated everywhere. And we're on there. Just look at what's happening in Holland, in France, in other places in Europe, in the UK, and you understand what is coming here. And I'm afraid right now we're way behind, and they bribed a lot of people out there. Okay, so I'm not that optimistic on that, but I think that we still have a chance because one, they're so small, and second, they have a lot of enemies also. So we should just think together who are their enemies and work together. But if you ask me if I'm optimistic right now, I'm really not that optimistic. They're buying everywhere and people are afraid of them.
Well, you're very right. Their main enemy is Saudi Arabia. You know, Saudi Arabia had a blockade of Qatar until it was finally mediated away. In addition, Qatar deliberately calls its network Al Jazeera, which actually means the Saudi Arabian coast. So they're claiming the higher altitude in terms of authenticity for the entire Arabian Peninsula. I know many of our viewers are just discovering this. This is just the beginning. We will be covering more of this. Thank you, Yossi. Stick around.
One point, though. There's two different issues. We could easily, the hope is if we could, for example, pass a law that declares the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization. That will change everything because that will mean that they will have to separate from it.
So you're saying you'd like to see the Muslim Brotherhood declared an FTO, a foreign terrorist organization, in the same way Hamas and others have, correct?
Correct. If that happens, that creates a huge problem for the Qataris. They have to retreat.
Now, if any such discussion takes place, we must understand there are many groups with the name Muslim Brotherhood, and certain groups were just banned days ago by the Jordanian government. Those were not the actual threatening Muslim Brotherhood, but an older part of the Muslim Brotherhood. Yossi, thank you for your information. Well done. Next, we turn, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another command center of threat. I refer to UNRWA, UNRWA, United Nations Relief Works Agency. By now, the informed pro-Jewish and pro-Israel community knows that the United Nations Relief and Works Agency is a UN and intergovernmentally funded terrorism support organization dressed up as a fake refugee agency for fake refugees, namely the so-called Palestinians, even if they were born in Manhattan, of parents who were also born in Manhattan, all under the sponsorship of a fake international body of peace, the United Nations, which is under the effective control of two of its 5 permanent controlling members, namely China and Russia, in coalition with more than 50 Islamic countries and delegations. UNRWA operates with a budget that probably exceeds $4 billion annually through known and unknown sources. So that's close to $40 billion in the last decade. With that money, UNRWA supports Hamas and other terror organizations in the Middle East, from Gaza to the Syrian Golan. It trains youngsters to become cold-blooded killer terrorists. It indoctrinates children from their earliest moments to hate Jews and prepare to die as martyrs in the war to destroy Israel, and maintains a physical infrastructure to support terrorist operations wherever they are. According to Israeli intel, at least 440 of UNRWA's 13,000 employees in Gaza, 13,000 employees in Gaza, are Hamas terrorists, plus some 2,000 are registered Hamas operatives, and more than 7,000 have immediate family members who are active in Hamas. Remember that Hamas's top leader, Yahya Sinwar, was found dead with an expired UNRWA teacher passport in his pocket. UNRWA is not to be confused with UNHCR, the United Nations Refugee Agency, which helps refugees of all nations other than so-called Palestinians. UNHCR helps Ukrainians, Rwandans, the Northern Caribbean region, and operates in scores of other parts of the world where people must flee and seek resettlement, a process which for millions generally takes a few years, not 80 years, a few years. Once refugees are resettled, their descendants belong to the country of their birth. My forest fighter parents in Poland escaped the Holocaust. They were gathered into a displaced persons camp, and I was born in America. In 1945, my parents were refugees. I was born in Chicago, and I'm an American. A two-fisted, don't mess with me American, but an American from the moment of my birth. yet an Arab born in Chicago at the same time as me, who descended from a person who fled the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, is still counted as a refugee. Yes, UNRWA, this fake Palestinian refugee agency, creates new refugees every day all over the world based on a unique and fraudulent inherited refugee entitlement that no other citizen of the world can access. So whereas in 1948, 700,000 Arabs fled the war zones in Israel that were created by 7 invading Arab countries that jointly vowed to finish Hitler's extermination. And whereas today, an estimated only 30,000 of those refugees are still alive, almost 80 years later, UNRWA has registered almost 6 million refugees as of the last count this year, including those living in numerous fake refugee camps located in the semi-states of the Palestinian Authority and Gaza. Yes, there are so-called refugee camps in Ramallah right next to the Palestinian multi-million shekel palaces in a land they own and control. By mandate, unlike the UN Refugee Agency, UNRWA is precluded from finding solutions to statelessness and is instead a unique and remarkable creator of generation-to-generation hate, alienation, pseudo-suffering, and terror. UNRWA has become one of the driving engines in the cradle-to-grave terror society jointly created with Hamas over the past 20 years. The reason there are virtually no innocent civilians in Gaza, they're all complicit or being trained from diapers to be complicit. The reason Gaza must be evacuated and its population must be de-radicalized, as we did with the post-Reich Nazi population and are doing right now with the families and children of the crushed Islamic State who have been secluded into settlement camps. It is the reason October 7th was a popular civilian applauded and civilian assisted massacre. UNRWA has been protected by the corrupt anti-Jewish and anti-Israel Biden administration, which was coterminous with the Biden administration's so-called reward for the mass murder of Jews, namely the mad push for a recognized Palestinian state, to be toasted despite the babies roasted, to be thrilled despite the 1,200 killed, and all attempts to hold UNRWA and its U.S. component, which has a 501c3 tax-exempt status, have been thwarted by the Biden Justice Department. But UNRWA, your day has come. The Trump DOJ has just stripped UNRWA of its immunity, and in a few days, monster lawsuits will proceed. One of the main movers, shakers, and litigators of that lawsuit is here to reveal what's ahead. It's Joseph Tipograph. He comes to us today from Israel. Joe, reveal. Tell us what you got. All of it. Go, Joe.
Thank you, Edwin, for that phenomenal introduction and explanation about UNRWA. I'm at the law firm of Heidemann, Noodleman, and Kalick. We have, for over 2 decades, been representing American victims of terrorism. We have secured billions of dollars of judgments and settlements on behalf of our clients against material state sponsors of terror, like Iran, Syria, Libya, the Arab Bank, just to name a few. Long before October 7th, UNRWA has been on our radar. As you pointed out, Edwin, the indoctrination of children alone was widely known. Their textbooks have been put out there for the world to see. Their curricula was out there for the world to see. It was very clear they were sending a message to the Palestinian people: the Jews don't belong here. The Israelis don't belong here. And that coming from what is in the auspices of some sort of world authority, as they cloak themselves to be, was enormously problematic and at a growing pace. Still, prior to October 7th, it was a big question mark, because this issue of immunity that you raised loomed large. The United States is a party to the Convention on the Privileges and Immunities of the United Nations. And what that convention says, what that treaty says, is that the United Nations, the UN, is absolutely immune from process. Now, the courts in the United States, which are the ones who make the decisions on immunity when these cases are brought, they took it a step further. And every time somebody sued an agency of the United Nations, the courts would say, this agency, this group is a subsidiary organ. And because they're a subsidiary organ and not a specialized agency, which is another characterization that doesn't get immunity, okay, they are protected. Now, let's fast forward to October 7th. You did a phenomenal job of explaining the intertwinement of Hamas and UNRWA as we saw it that day. And for us, as we were being engaged by different victims and the family members, those who were tortured, those who were killed, those who were taken hostage and raped, we were looking hard at UNRWA. Are we going to bring this case now during the Biden administration or the Trump administration? We knew fairly well what we could expect from the Biden administration. But one law firm did decide, a law firm we love and respect, through their stone in the water early, sued in June of 2024. And 2 days later, the United Nations sends a letter to the UN representative and says that they respectfully request the competent United States authorities to take appropriate action to ensure full respect for the privileges and immunities of the United Nations and its officials. Okay, and then there's this other part here. They say, as an integral part of the United Nations, UNRWA is entitled to the privileges and immunities provided for in the General Convention. That's not the test. And to say that UNRWA is an integral part of the United Nations is offensive for the reasons that you said. Yet, here we are, a month later, the Biden administration puts out a statement of interest, okay? And they like this language of UNRWA being an integral part of the United Nations. They thought it was so nice, they said it thrice. They say, as an integral part of the United Nations, UNRWA enjoys the privileges and immunities of the United Nations. And then they put it in quotations here. And to booster it, they make sure that we know UNRWA is an integral part of the United Nations. Integral meaning important and necessary. Integral, where the goal of the United Nations is to help provide security for its members, and yet they are telling this group of Hamas, no, this land of Israel is built on your land, causing a fight. It's a demographic powder keg. And so we jump in and we file immediately an amicus brief. We point out that the powder keg, and we talk about the weakness of letting the General Assembly, and you did a very good job of outlining this, the big mass of countries that can control the General Assembly with their votes, letting them dictate what constitutes a subsidiary organ, which is therefore worthy of the protection of the United States court system. The US government under Biden lapped it up. They let those General Assembly resolutions dictate their policy in their statement. Fast forward, as you say, 2 weeks ago, the Trump administration had previously withdrawn the statement of interest filed by the Biden administration and put one in their own. And indeed, in that, they made it very clear that the General Assembly does not get to make law. The General Assembly's job is to deliberate, to think about things, to recommend things, to give suggestions. They don't get to create an organ that has a quasi-governmental function, that is teaching people, that is feeding people in perpetuity forever. And that has now, and this is me speaking, not the government, been a cash cow, like you said, for Hamas. You said at the beginning that the Trump administration stripped UNRWA of their immunity. The cynics out there will tell you that it's not for Trump to decide, that it's going to be up to the courts. But I'll tell you this. I think much like when he announced that Jerusalem was the capital of Israel, what Trump did was he said a truth that always existed. UNRWA is not an immune organization. They never were. And soon enough, it will all be known.
All right, listen, Thanks for that explication. I want some details. What kind of lawsuit are we talking about? How big is the lawsuit? How much dough are you asking? What kind of action are you calling for? And when's it going to happen?
As soon as possible. Okay. As soon as possible, as much as possible. When you're asking about how much, and the goal is to make UNRWA crawl into a hole and never come out again, because what they have done is unthinkable.
So you're saying that we could see a lawsuit within weeks of this show, correct?
It's possible.
And you are working on it, right?
We work as a team. We have a phenomenal team at HNK. We all bring different and strong skill sets to the table, and we want to put out the best case possible, because this is more than just money. The clients that we have, no amount of money can ever recover for what they've lost. To lose a father, a sister, a brother, a husband, a wife, a son, a daughter, there is no dollar figure you can put on this.
Well said. And we are going to be following your work, and we know that the work that you and your law firm is precious to the world. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before I proceed to your important questions, I want to add my 2 shekels to the discussion. First, I wish to announce that a little more than 90 minutes ago, the Vatican revealed its new Papa, namely Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, from my own hometown from Chicago. In Chicago for decades, the church and the political machine, the democratic political machine, were inseparable in terms of power, providence, and sheer governing partnership. I worked with Catholic Charities to help disadvantaged communities fight oppression. But I also worked with exiled Father Andrew Greeley and other critics of the church. I investigated the church. It took a lot of chutzpah to investigate the church in the media in those days. I investigated the Catholic Church for multiple levels of corruption in the days when His Eminence Cardinal Cody embodied the Hollywood caricature of a wheeling and dealing cardinal with a mansion right next to the Playboy Mansion, transferring child-abusing priests to small, out-of-the-way parishes in small towns in Arizona. A federal grand jury in Chicago subpoenaed documents investigating whether Cardinal Cody illegally diverted as much as $1 million in tax-exempt church funds to enrich a so-called lifelong friend from St. Louis. Turns out that this lifelong friend was actually his wife. Her name was Helen Dolan Wilson of Boca Raton, Florida. Cody had put her on the Archdiocese of Chicago payroll with a hefty salary. She enjoyed a swanky lakefront high-rise apartment. Cody worked insurance contracts with Wilson's son, and she became the beneficiary of a $100,000 insurance policy on Cody's life. Out of that Chicago church corruption, which we saw play out with equal darkness in the Boston Archdiocese and to an extent in the Washington, D.C. Archdiocese and many other places, came a crop of reformers devoted to the cloth and the community and the meaning of the cross. They fled Chicago to serve the unserved in the forgotten corners of the planet, in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Although the just announced Pope spent most of his days in Peru serving the poor and the pious, he is almost certainly one of the new reformers that emerged from the dark days of the Catholic Church that ruled a generation ago. We therefore have every hope to believe that Habemus Papam signals to the world a caring Holy Father who will fight against oppression and who will struggle to lurch us forward into a brighter decade that will oppose bigotry, anti-Semitism, war, and exploitation. The shoes of the fishermen are hard to fill. We will judge the new Pope by his steps and his path at a time when the world is preparing to destroy itself, and its populations will do the same, both with sabers and supersonic missiles. Good luck, Pope. Item 2, as we look at the out-of-control judiciary attempting to hijack the prerogatives of the executive branch with bizarre national rulings, much has been said. Eventually, all the cries and shrieks about a civil war will not intersect with reality because of our visceral disagreements. That's part of America. But you will see that civil war emerge when jurisdictions and rulings are rejected. The judicial showdown is coming. And under our system, it is the Supreme Court that will decide. But it is possible that the Supreme Court will decide erroneously. They have grievously erred before, when in the 1857 Dred Scott decision, they declared slaves could not be citizens and therefore could not sue in federal court. Oliver Wendell Holmes in the 1927 Buck versus Bell case ruled genocide, legal genocide, by preventing birth was A-OK, and that, quote, this is from Oliver Wendell Holmes, 3 generations of imbeciles was enough, close quote, thus enabling the forced sterilization of more than 60,000 Americans. In the 1944 Korematsu decision, the Supreme Court ruled it justified to send thousands of innocent Japanese Americans to concentration camps, yet another stain on our struggle to achieve a just society. The outcome of this coming skirmish will define our democracy and the limits achievable by the political insurgents now being waged by the fascist Democrats. Item 3, Jews are in trouble in America and worldwide. It is true that Donald Trump has become history's greatest defender of human rights, advocate for peace, and protector of the Jewish people. He and his whole of government is working day and night to defund, deport, and deny the anti-Semitic surges afflicting this country. But there is so much more to do, because what is left of the defeated and fragmented Democratic Party has now been overtaken by extremists, fanatics, anti-American and anti-Semitic professional agitators funded by foreign sources. And here I mean this, it is not the swastikas and the stormtroopers in brown that we fear. It is the pro-Palestinian hate forces in keffiyehs and their useful idiots acting as the Arab street has always acted for centuries, with vandalizing swarms and mob violence. Look at this crazy black rapper, Kanye West. Just hours ago, he released a non-stop video chanting over and over again, Heil Hitler, nigga, Heil Hitler, as black stage dancers jiggled back and forth in weird outfits. That's all, just Heil Hitler over and over again. But, listen, but this monstrosity has been viewed millions of times in the previous hours of today, and it's been liked more than 30,000 times, and yet its first day, many of us just don't understand what is happening. We, you and I, my audience, my guests, we are products of reason, of the victory in World War II. The new generation comes from no tradition, no tragedy. They live in the here and now. They live in the iPhone, the tablet, the ticking and the talking. They can be influenced, manipulated, and radicalized far more quickly than Goebbels could have dreamed. Not even Orwell could have imagined the speed. I just came from a life-changing trip. I was scouring residence for the International March of the Living in Auschwitz just days ago, and then flew to chair several vital forums at the JNS International Policy Summit in Jerusalem, where the consensus was that the old perspective, what is called the old conceptia, has been proven wrong. We cannot coexist with certain enemies, because inevitably these certain enemies will rise up as they did on October 7th, and they have promised to do so every October 7th. And not only from Gaza, from Lebanon and elsewhere. Our enemies must be defeated, crushed, eliminated. We can no longer exist surrounded by Arabs who spend their entire life training to murder us. I'm speaking of the ones in Lebanon, Gaza, the so-called West Bank, which is actually Judea and Samaria, Yemen, it's 1,300 miles away, Iran, 1,000 plus miles away. What has been started with our campaigns against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and the Iranian theocracy, we must finish. At the same time, we must aggressively and with muscular effort make peace and make friends with every other Arab and every other neighbor. Look at what is happening with Hungary. Who would have thought a few years ago that Hungary, one of the worst in the Holocaust, would become the safest place for Jews and the biggest in Europe and the biggest ally for Israel on that continent. But what I said about Israel, the same goes for Brooklyn, Los Angeles, Toronto, and London. There, in those cities, we must litigate. We must prosecute, affiliate, and legislate until we achieve against these Jew haters what we have previously achieved against the Ku Klux Klan, the Order, the Mafia, and many others. And this courage begins at home. So our 50% of Jewry that still fears Trump supports toxic definitions of free speech. I ask you, was Goebbels, Hitler, and Rockwell practicing just free speech? We must reach out to them. As we know, it was the gleaming shield of coexistence in the Gaza envelope kibbutzim that were the first to be mass murdered and raped. And we must now all act warlike in our self-defense. Mostly, we must accept that this problem that we have will not go away in a week, and it will not go away in a year. This is a generational struggle. My guests who are on this show now, they know it, and you've got to know it. It's a struggle as we have had from generation to generation. We need to us Jews, we need to not only worry about today, not only about what goes on this year, but about the next generation, the unborn generation, as we flex every muscle to regain the relative safety we knew for a short interregnum. But that short interregnum is finished. It was finished on October 6th. We are in the fight of our lives right now, ladies and gentlemen. And if we go, you're next. And we've only got 3.5 years to get it done. So forget about your fourth big screen TV and your third car. Jews, wake up, listen for the rails vibrating, watch for the smoke getting nearer, and come together for justice and our own survival. What say you, Yossi?
I don't want to get into the politics of it. Of course, everything is politics today, okay? And I think there are changes happening worldwide right now, okay? But I'll be very... People like to jump on everything very, very quickly. Today, the president said this entity said that, etc. I think the biggest issue right now we want to see is how Iran ends in the next month. And if Iran has been destroyed then or reduced dramatically, then things are different. If the administration kind of wiggles kind of a embedded agreement, I don't think this will fly in Congress and in the Republican Party. So there's a lot of issues there. But I think the way I'm looking at it is I'm saying, if we want to save America, if we want to save Israel, if we want to save the Jews, Iran first, Qatar second, the rest will take care of itself.
And I agree not only with the objectives you enumerated, but the order in which you enumerate them. Iran first. With Iran, when Iran falls, the Houthis will fall. What's left of Hezbollah will fall. What's left, Hamas will fall. Then we need to go after Qatar, which is trying to inject toxins into our very freedoms for the Muslim Brotherhood. And then we will work on everything else. Joe Typograph, what do you have to say?
I think, the immense hate that comes at the Jewish people comes from a place of envy and is reflective of the strength of the Jewish people and our resilience. But there's no doubt that on the heels of the Holocaust, what happened through the UN is a globalization of the Holocaust, right? They took the blueprint of indoctrination and propaganda that was so centered on one area and figured out that how do we now infiltrate this new body, not just a country, not just a government, but this new global body, and make it go everywhere. And here we are, 70 plus, nearly 80 years since the UN has been founded, and all of the efforts that started way back when they defined refugees for the rest of the world one way, and refugees from Israel a different way, and the demographic powder keg that's created, and that's not stopping. It is continuing to grow and will only continue to grow until it's shattered. You see on October 7th exactly how that plays out.
I think I may want to add that this Islamist anti-Semitism is not accidental, it's by design. In 1968, there was a conference in Cairo of all the big Islamist scholars at the time. And you can buy on Amazon the protocols of that conference. And they made a decision to use anti-Semitism as a way to penetrate the extreme right and extreme left around the world, especially Europe. And their idea was that their hatred for the Jews is much larger than their hatred for people who hate gays or people who hate women, etc. That is how they penetrated. So that was by design. The anti-Semitism was by design. Today, we see even more people jumping on the bandwagon. So when we look at China and Russia, they're basically using anti-Semitism, and they're supporting it right now as a way to weaken the United States. So we're caught as Jews in the middle of international war, that we're not the main players, but we're on the front line and being shot at.
All right, those were sage words indeed, and now we're going to start taking questions. And as you might expect, the first question comes from the villages, which I always let go first. And the first question is Iran going to be bombed? Okay, I say that there's 51% chance that the answer is yes. Without messing around, what do you say, Yossi?
No.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to some very smart guys who know very smart guys, and we're not sure. Is that correct, Yossi?
Correct.
Right. Can Israel do it by itself?
Yes.
Right.
Can Israel destroy 80-90% of the nuclear facility and delay everything by 20 years? Yes. Can Israel by itself change the regime in Iran? The answer is no.
All right. So I wonder if the taking out of the nuclear facilities, which would require the taking out of the IRGC facilities, since they would react within 9 minutes, that all of that will dismantle much of the theocracy, and that there is a huge national Iranian yearning to join the 21st century and to make peace with Israel. Is that a dynamic that you think is real?
I can go back to the Obama days, the Green Revolutions. If Obama bombed for 2 weeks, together with the Green Revolution in Iran, if he bombed IRGC facilities for 2 weeks, the army was already ready to rebel. Will the United States take on itself today to bomb for 2-3 weeks the IRGC facility and eliminate them and signaling to the Iranian people to take over? That's what I would do, but I'm not sure that's what the administration will do.
But what's Bibi going to do? He's going to act one way or the other. He doesn't have a choice to check with Mar-a-Lago before he flies. Is that correct?
I think it will be coordinated, but because everything that lifts in the air, you can see it everywhere. Okay. So I think it will be coordinated. He'll be allowed to do it without asking a question, but everybody will see and know. But the issue is, can Israel sustain the ammunition, the capabilities to sustain non-stop daily dozens of attacks on from that distance on bases? I don't think it can. I think that's more for the United States to do.
I think that Israel, you and I both know that any such attack will not take a day. It will not be surgery. It'll be sledgehammering, and it will take at least 2 to 3 weeks. I believe that Israel has the munitions. I believe it has the chutzpah. I believe it has the plan, and I believe it will get the resupply. Don't forget, there's a huge stockpile in the Negev that the Americans control, and you are correct. Nothing can be done without the explicit permission. Remember, no plane can fly without a friend or foe transponder to keep it immune from our air defenses in that region. Thank you, Watch Party in the Villages. From the Watch Party in Newton, Mass., do you support Trump and Elon Musk? And why do so many Jews oppose Trump? Well, I, of course, support Trump. And the main reason, hear this, my friends on the East Coast and the West Coast, the main reason that I support Trump and Musk is that they have come to the rescue. They have got a whole of government, real, genuine war against anti-Semitism. Just hours ago, 78 protesters were arrested when they invaded the Columbia University library. Secretary Rubio personally said, we're going to check every one of them for foreign status and deport them. Billions of dollars are being defunded. 501c3s are having their tax-exempt status challenged. We've got task forces that are real. These are not press releases. This is real. I support Elon Musk for everything that he's done. I was particularly unnerved by a friend of mine, very smart, highly intelligent, incisive guy, who said that Elon Musk had set up a system that was more deadly than the Gestapo. And I just come back from Auschwitz, and I told this very intelligent guy, don't be stupid. I said the Gestapo specialized in torture. They used to peel the skin off of people and torture them. They used to beat up babies and children in front of their parents. They sent people to concentration camps. They worked with the SS to murder people. Elon Musk isn't murdering anyone. He's not using his computers to schedule the trains. That was IBM and their punch cards. Elon Musk is not doing it. Does anybody, Joe or Yossi, want to comment?
Yeah. Look, I think with Trump, you can make all the predictions in the world or talk about what goes through his head, but nobody knows what goes through his head but Donald Trump. What you do know is that he did have the presidency for 4 years, and prior to being reelected, and now he's coming up on 5th out of 8. But in his 4 years, he did tremendous things. He moved the embassy from Tel Aviv, the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He was the first president to defund UNRWA. Biden then refunded, put the funding back in before realizing he needed to take it out. But Trump took positions that sided with Israel in ways that you really didn't see politicians do prior to him. I don't know if Israel will see another president of the United States that understands Israel's story the way Trump does, and not through his words, but through his actions. And as to the question as to why Jews in America still don't support Donald Trump, I think where the Republican Party is more focused on doing the right thing, the Democratic Party is more focused on saying the right thing. And sadly, I think that that's resonating with too many people, and they're not looking past the words and really focusing in on the actions.
All right, thanks. Now we've got another question here from Harvey in Tampa. It was asked in our QA feature, and he says, isn't the fight with Qatar a political one, not a military one? I'll answer first, and then I'll go to Yossi. It's got to be both. First, it has to be political, but that's only phase one. Ultimately, there will have to be a military dynamic. Yossi, what do you say?
define it. So I'll give you an example. There's a social media network called AJ Plus. That's Al Jazeera Plus. You probably didn't hear about it, but it's number 3 in America and under 25 years old. Okay, it's full of anti-American and anti-Jewish messaging, nonstop. You think you don't know about anything about it, but a lot of kids listen to it or play with it or use it. So they're going after America. They're going after us. It doesn't matter that they're using soft power or everything else. In the end, if you want to beat them, it has to be militarily. But the fight is across the board.
All right, I agree with you. Now, the Watch Party in Chicago has a very important question. They say, what is due process? So there are a lot of things that are not justiciable, which Joseph Tipograph knows means cannot be debated in court. When the Department of Defense starts bombing the Houthis, they don't need a court order first. When the parole board says no or yes, that is not appealable. And there's no judge in the United States who can tell the president under the Alien Enemies Act what is and is not an invasion, since that is expressly the domain of the executive. And I think it's important to understand that many of these rulings are being overturned at the appellate level. It's hard to believe that some guy, some rapist, some gang member, some killer, have his case go all the way to the Supreme Court with the biggest lawyers in the land and say, I haven't had due process. I'm going to put Joe on the spot. Joe, what the heck is due process? And here's an important question. Does everybody get the same due process? The people who are in the country and the people who have snuck into the country. Take a swing at it, Joe.
Well, I think your point is spot on, Edwin. Our Constitution was designed to primarily be a contract between the government and its citizens. And the fact that we see such an outrage about how a government is looking at non-citizens who haven't taken the steps to become citizens of the country, who haven't shown their commitment to the country and its values, and who've actually shown publicly that they have no problem chanting death to America and associating with others who do. There is a reason why we have a constitution. There is a reason why citizenship is something that people obtain and why those protections should be elevated. And we do have still to this day, as far as we know, an American citizen sitting in Gaza. His name is Eden Alexander, and he has been there for over 500 days. We're coming up on 600 days. And those people who are talking about due process and about the freedoms of America have not mentioned his name.
That's right. That's an excellent point. I should say that there is a process, and it's a due process. Under the Alien Enemies Act, the president cannot pick and choose. The president must make an active declaration, and that declaration is the necessary step and the necessary process. When the SWAT team breaks in on exigent circumstances, it does not do so by getting a court order first. And when you are denied entry to the United States, there is not first a legal process to say, Mother, may I? Very good, Joe. We have another question here. Very good one. Mark in London. What is happening to the Druze? A horrible scandal is happening to the Druze. Syria is doing a fabulous job of remaking itself from its ISIS 3.0 takeover government. In the last few days and hours, thousands of Druze have been assaulted. Many have been massacred. They've been crucified on crosses, shot in the head. There are people fleeing. And then the big debate within the Jewish community, as Yossi knows and as Joe Tipograph knows, was what is Israel doing to protect the Druze? So Israel went in, it worked to protect the Jews militarily. It warned with missiles. It evacuated dozens of injured Jews to a hospital in Safad. I was in Safad just days ago in the north of Israel while they were being evacuated. But my question is, where is the world? Where is the United Nations? Where is Gutierrez? Where are the Democrats? Where are these so-called human rights organizations while the Jews are being slaughtered in open with GoPro cameras and their destruction is being shown on Facebook and Signal? Yossi, comment.
So the Druze exist in three countries, Lebanon, Israel, and Syria. And traditionally, they always work for the government. That's part of the ethos. So in theory, you could have a Druze from Syria fighting a Druze in the Israeli army. What happened now is a break from history of 1,000 years of history. And that is that the Islamists are now attacking the Druze. Even ISIS 2.0 did not attack the Druze, okay? This is the first time the Druze are being attacked by their own people. And I believe that has to do with a push with Muslim Brothers from Qatar through Turkey, because Qatar is also behind all of that. But again, the world is a hypocritical place. They're bought.
Joe, 30 seconds. What's up?
I mean, I think it is amazing that they are being unified now in the Golan. And I think the world could do the Druze a big favor in recognizing the opportunity that exists and that Israel's control over the entire Golan. Unifying the Druze is something that could be something that might be sustainable, if it is sustainable on a long-term basis. Yossi would know better than I if that is actually something that would be in Israel's best interests. But I'm here in Israel. I have Druze friends who are loyal Israeli citizens and are integrated in the society here. They love being Israelis, and I have no doubt that the Syrian Jews would love it here as well.
Last question we're going to take, because we're a little bit over, folks, but I always like going over with great guests. Harvey from the Watch Party in Tampa, the newly revealed nuclear site in Iran, how protected is it based on the images? Is it buried in the mountains? So, Harvey, a few hours ago, Israel and certain selected medias announced the discovery of a heretofore unknown giant nuclear complex, which was disguised as a different company. It's over 2,100 acres. This shows you the magnitude of the problem. I don't think it's got protection because all the air defenses have been taken down. It is almost certainly got much more underneath the surface than above the surface. Israel has the munitions, and as far as the ability to refuel and fight for 2 to 3 weeks with continuous round-the-clock bombing, strafing, Israel has the weaponry. I won't go into detail. And it's got 2 things, including one big thing with a mythical name that I'll tell Yossi about after the show. So that's my answer, Harvey, and I hope that helped. Now, we're out of time, so I want to hold my closing word of wisdom just 2 minutes away. But first, I want to thank my very, very knowledgeable guests. I mean, Mideast analyst Yossi Hollander and crusading attorney Joseph Tipograph. Keep doing what you're doing, Joseph. I also thank my talented international team, including Martin in Michigan. Happy for what happened in Vatican today for you. Holly in Nashville, Rebecca in the Philippines, as well as many others in numerous additional cities around the world. I'll see everyone back here, not in 2 weeks, but in 3 weeks. I've got to travel near the end of May. You want to be a friend of the Edwin Black Show? Go to theedwinblackshow.com/support. Keep me independent. You want to hear me in person? Watch my website for events. Consult my events page at edwinblack.com. And until then, head over to any Barnes & Noble in the USA or any Amazon, Walmart, iTunes Books, Google Books, Kobo, or Audible.com platform in 190 countries across this roiling, toiling, boiling planet, where you can find any of my 235 book editions, soon going to be 250, such as IBM and the Holocaust and banking on Baghdad. You want an autographed copy? Hit edwinblack.com and click books. Get access alerts to participate in live and future shows at the edwinblackshow.com. Sign up. You'll see a much enhanced and exquisitely produced version of this show in about a month, and you'll see prior episodes as well by subscribing to our YouTube channel at the Edwin Black Show. Click the notification button like tens of thousands of others have. Follow me at Edwin Black Book on X as well as Facebook. And now for my closing word of wisdom. You want to find your inner voice? Say something that makes a difference. I'm zooming out, ladies and gentlemen, from our nation's capital. Bless all of you. Pray for all that is about to unfold before our eyes.